And we are live. So, welcome to our continuing coverage of season one of Penny Dreadful, Showtime's classic gothic horror series. I am the American Werewolf. With me again tonight, I've got the Goraphobe. What's happening, man?
Not much, man. Just I checked this out. Let me see. I checked it out once, and I checked it out a second time to get notes on it. Of course, that was yesterday, but you know, it's a pretty simple episode. No Ethan this time. No Doctor Frankenstein.
No, here we got a lot of backstory. This was a backstory with Vanessa and Sir Malcolm and Mina, and you sort of understand how this whole thing came to pass. And I thought it was done really well.
Yes.
This went about, well, this went many years back into the past, and we got to see Vanessa and Mina as children and a young Sir Malcolm, so on and so forth. Just give me your impressions off the bat. I mean, did you enjoy the episode? I mean, did you?
Oh yeah. And
No.
well, it reminds me of what we were talking about last week. Remember, I was kind of curious because they kind of nodded at something, so I thought something else might have went on, and so now I found out exactly what it was that went on. And
Yeah, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
exactly what happened to the friendship and how close she was to the family when she was a kid. Her
Yeah,
and her whole family.
yeah. Vanessa and Sir Malcolm have their equal share of transgressions. And so you can see why they're sort of together, and when he said last week that you're the daughter that I deserve, in more ways than one, that's fucking true. It starts out with Vanessa handwriting, of course, these letters to Mina, and just talking about things. This is maybe her, version of therapy. Where she's sort of journaling, but she's journaling in letter form, writing them to Mina, and we get almost an entire episode of flashback. So we get a lot of exposition this time, and I think it's a pretty short episode, about 45 minutes, but it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And we go back into Vanessa and Mina's childhood, and they're living extremely well. Having a lot of fun. Their children, they're the name of the episode is Closer Than Sisters.
Right.
So in many ways, they kind of are. They're these childhood friends who are living these. I wrote idyllic. This idyllic sort of life. They seem to be wealthy people, and their families are friends. So Mina and Vanessa are friends. What did you think of the setup between the families?
I liked it. I knew something must have happened, but I liked it, and I could kind of there was a little foreshadowing with Peter, the brother to Mina, and we also found a little bit about the whole Africa thing, and that Sir Malcolm immediately comes in and gives him that he got from Africa, and he's completely just taken by it, and then they run off together, and he pretty much treats Vanessa like his own daughter. Like I think she stays there most of the time. Her family has dinner with Mina's family and Sir Malcolm and everything. They're all really tight.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is, a childhood connection. Vanessa, and yeah, you're right. There's young Peter, who's this sort of proper,
Yeah.
gentlemanly kind of character. He really doesn't strike you as much of an average teenager. He's like a little adult, this
Right.
little thin, sort of adult, not terribly strapping or anything like that, probably like Sir Malcolm would prefer. And of course, the only thing he wants is to please his father by having his father take him on this trip to Africa, the Africa trip where we know he's already died. And you can see, it's this sad sort of setup that they have here, where the only thing that Peter wants is the thing that's going to kill him.
Right.
you also end up meeting a much well. They didn't de-age him or anything like that. You end up meeting Sir Malcolm and seeing him again as a young man, just coming back from his sort of exploits in Africa. I guess they put a little bit of that what's that stuff that you dye your beard a little bit,
right? Yeah,
that sort of thing. And it's always good to see Timothy Dalton. It's funny. I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that about the new Yellowstone. And I was saying, Harrison Ford did it, the 1923. He's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And the bad guy is none other than 007 himself, Timothy Dalton. He was like, oh, man, I got to watch that, So, Timothy Dalton, still gets people, they want to watch him. Here he's got a little dye in his hair. But, he's basically the same, coming back. And he loves his family and he loves his children. I don't think that there's any doubt about that, He's a little distant, I thought. He shakes Peter's hand. He doesn't give him a hug.
Right.
But he hugs the two girls. Huh?
He saves the warmth for Mina and Vanessa, which isn't even his daughter. She crawls up against him just like he's her dad.
Yeah, very much. So maybe that tells you that something's a little bit off there. He doesn't necessarily have the warmest or the most passionate sort of setup for his wife coming back. It's very sort of stiff. Not terribly passionate or anything like that. So you would think after a long time, he'd grab her up in his arms or something like that, and plant a big smooch on her. He doesn't have to mount her on the table there, or anything like that. But yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. Instead, he chooses to charm them with regaling his tales of his glorified tales of how he survived all these different cannibals and stuff in Africa.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is that the narration is done by Vanessa Eva Green, and she talks the entire time about this thing that's just beneath the surface. And so we get into that a little bit. We can see just beneath the surface between him and Peter, between him and Gladys, his wife, that things aren't quite as idyllic as they seem. I mean, they're pretty fucking good, but what ends up happening is, they have a nice dinner together. The two families are together out there, and it turns out, Vanessa's coming home, and what does she find but Timothy Dalton and Vanessa's mother? Yeah, so Sir Malcolm and Vanessa's mother are getting it on in like these maze, that the maze of hedges that reminds me a little bit of The Shining, or like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. They got that kind of maze. She just turns a corner and Sir Malcolm's banging her mom, and she's just like, what the fuck is this? So again, we're seeing that Sir Malcolm is not this, like he and Vanessa, I guess, are kind of the main protagonists. I would say maybe Vanessa a little bit more than he, but he certainly, he has, he's sharing that top billing. But he's not a good guy. He's not a nice guy. No. Let's put it. He's cheating on his wife. He's kind of a scumbag. These sorts of things, so on and so forth.
Full of shit, yeah.
Yeah, what's your impression of Sir Malcolm? I mean, we've had this discussion where, clearly they've said that, where they explain to Ethan, we're not nice people. No one here is kind.
Right. But in front of people, in front of his wife and his son and the girls, he definitely portrayed himself to be this charming man of the world,
gentleman,
father, husband, gentleman. He portrays himself to have a lot of class, and then he goes off and he's porking her mom.
So, yeah. There's something going on there, and that sort of triggers something in Vanessa, who starts, these, silly little, things that she does. Like she starts stealing, she starts acting out,
Yeah.
like I think any kid would. That's about as good as it gets, really. I mean, you see your mom is cheating on your dad, and you decide you're going to keep it inside yourself because, back then, I mean, who could you really tell? She
Especially
doesn't tell Mina. So
especially with
she
someone as
deals
close as
with
she
it
is.
by acting out with these negative behaviors, stealing here, taking something there, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And
Good.
that
Did you want to say something?
well, yeah, and I was going to say that, yeah, it makes it even worse that they lived right next door and it was with somebody that was pretty much her second family, you know? So
Yeah.
not only did it blow her image of her mother, but it also blew her image of him. And yet at the same time, she couldn't stop herself from wanting to watch, you know what I mean? There was that something inside of her that found it actually kind of exciting in a way.
Yeah, there's something that found it, but there's also something dark inside of her, which we get into much later. She
Yeah.
starts like open, like this door is open to this voice inside of her, and you can see it as a child. She's praying, and like this thing is like hanging behind her back.
Yeah, she was
You
hearing
know,
voices then as a kid.
yeah, yeah, she's hearing voices, and so it's kind of fucked up. And then you sort of fast forward into the future, and Mina is engaged to this British officer, with the mustache, and he, the dashing gentleman. And
Bronson.
Vanessa admits it up front. She's like, I'm envious, you know,
Hmm.
because she's kept this secret all this time, and she considers herself to be the experienced one, but really it's Mina who's going to be experiencing life. She's going to be getting married, not to put up too far. She's going to be having sex, they're going to be raising a family. And I think they plan to take her to India, because India was a British colony back then, so she's going to see the world. And so Vanessa is kind of, triggered by that.
Yeah, she
And the
did.
fact that, her friend that she considered the innocent one is, kind of leaving her in the dust.
Yep, she's losing a sister. She's all her sister that she's losing is also getting a man that she wants. She seems to be getting the perfect man, and she's losing that sister, which means she probably won't be as close to the family as she has been. So all with one swoop, she would end up losing it all basically.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Peter is finally leaving for Africa. So there's
Right.
no further connection. And you get the impression that these two have been together for so long that they don't have anybody else. So
Yeah.
when Mina trades her friendship with Vanessa, in a sense, for marriage, she's moving on to the next thing. Peter is trading in his life for this voyage to Africa, and this exploration. So he's moving on. But, Vanessa is just sort of left there, and, there's nothing there for her.
Right.
And I think at one point, they're having this conversation, and she ends up throwing herself at Peter, because this childhood idea that they've had is that, she was always going to marry Peter. And she kind
Right.
of jumps on him, which is not
Crazy.
the worst thing you could have when it comes to Eva Green. I mean, geez, imagine getting paid for that kind of gig. You're
Yeah.
just like, okay, I've chosen the right career path. But I mean,
Scares the shit out of him.
yeah, talk about that.
Well, I don't know. I kind of got the idea that he was, you know what I mean? He was aware of it too, that they were supposed to be put together. But for one thing, he knows he's leaving. Well, his dream has always been to go with his dad to Africa. That's what he's thought about ever since he was a kid. And I don't know. I kind of got the idea that the grown up idea of him and Vanessa together, what it didn't mean as much to him as it might have meant for her. It's well, not mean more, but it's more important for her for them to get together than it is for him. It's more important for him to go with his dad to Africa.
I
So
think. Go ahead.
so she tries to push the subject and kind of scares him out of it. And I think it's somewhere between it scares him and this is just not what I want to do. I don't want to get wrapped up in this because I'm leaving type thing.
I think there's some truth there. I think he's also, and I put this down in the notes because Vanessa says it, but I thought of it myself. He's weak.
Mhm.
You know, like,
Yeah.
like he's too weak to take control of that situation. Like she opens the door for him, like women do, and
Yeah.
clearly she lets him know that it's okay.
So it's like
Come
she's
on
trying
in,
to
and
stop him.
he's, huh?
It's like she's trying to stop him from going too, because she doesn't feel he's strong enough to make it through Africa either. She doesn't feel like he would come back alive.
Yeah, which ended up turning out to be the truth. He ends up dying of dysentery or cholera or something. He ends up shitting
Yeah.
himself to death. We got into this early on in the episodes. And so, this soft, sort of kind-hearted, he's not, like, how some weak people can be, cruel or vindictive. Or he's very kind-hearted. He's polite. He would probably be a good husband for her. That they have money, so he wouldn't really have to struggle or anything like that, because he doesn't strike me as the type that he's made for that kind of thing. But he just, he's too weak to take advantage of the situation, and so he ends up leaving. And she said, if she had it to do it over again, she would have ran after him and told him not to go,
Right.
because she had the sense that he was going to die, that this place was going to kill him, so on and so forth. So the night before the wedding, yeah, how about that? She ends up getting it on, just out of the blue. And I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is because, like, you can see it from Sir Malcolm.
Yeah.
Sir Malcolm, and she confronts him during that seance and says, you left your son to die. You just went to keep exploring and just let him shit himself to death in the woods. You didn't even stay with your son when he died, because all you care about is the name Sir Malcolm Murray. But this was completely what I felt to be out of character from Vanessa. But looking at it now, you can see why she's so tightly wound.
She's desperate.
She's desperate, and I think she carries a lot of fucking guilt.
And jealousy. And she talks about in there about Mina, how how, I can't remember exactly how she puts it, but something to the point to where she almost even hates her for having that, and her not having it too.
Yeah. Now, you don't know whether these are the voices that influence her, moving her in this direction, but you get the sense that it's a human kind of response. Your best friend is moving on and you're not. Right. So some envy and some jealousy may be natural. I don't know that it extends to banging your best friend's fiance the night before their wedding.
Yeah.
Which is basically what she ends up doing.
Right.
And when I meant guilt and tightly wound, what I basically meant was the Mina that we see today. Right. Not in this episode, but the Mina that we see today is an extremely sort of reserved person. And maybe you can see why. And
naive, even.
Well, I wouldn't say naive, but she's very closely, she's wrapped real tight. She's wrapped real tight. She's not, free and breezy or anything. She's very serious. But you're starting to understand why now. And for me, everything was just this, which was the look on Mina's face when she walks in and sees her fiance fucking banging her best friend on the fucking taxidermy table, and you're just like, holy shit, like Vanessa fucked up.
And well, Vanessa's looking right at her while it's going on. Like he's turned into it. She's eyeballing, looking her right in the eyes. And not even trying to stop it.
And she doesn't look remorseful. She doesn't look. She's like, look at me.
How
do you like this? And it is just, I remember the first time I mean, were you surprised?
Well,
Were you surprised at the direction that this was going in?
no, actually, I wasn't surprised at all. Especially, but however, I kind of suspected it might happen because of the factors were leading up to that. But at the same time, when Branson came down the stairs, and she said, "Come with me. I got something to show you." I wasn't
Oh,
expecting that. That's what she was wanting to show him. you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's rough stuff. So I mean, they cut to the next scene, which isn't Mina's reaction, but it's Branson fucking going down the stairs. Timothy Dalton's giving him the fucking evil eye, and he's just not even making eye contact with anybody. He just gets in the carriage and fucking leaves. And we're adults now, on a woman's wedding day.
Yeah, he's looking not very happy because he didn't get to marry to money. He didn't get to get the wife he wanted. He fucked it up, and he just there with this.
Yeah, he has to be in their house until the situation, they can draw a carriage for him to get him out of there, and he just looks like he wants to be anywhere but there.
Yeah, not a word said. There wasn't a word necessary.
I would have thought Sir Malcolm would have pulled out a gun or something like that and tried to shoot him or something like that, which probably wouldn't have taken much goading from Sir Malcolm,
Probably,
Sir Malcolm's kind of a vicious bastard.
Right.
He kind of is, we can see from these flashbacks that even back then he was as well. And that brings us to an interesting part of the episode, and that is this illness that Vanessa sort of has this collapse, whether you want to call it a nervous collapse or, a break. She has like a breakdown.
Seizures and shit. Yeah.
Seizures, and, the family doesn't know how to deal with her. She just kind of wants to die. She doesn't eat. She doesn't talk. And so she is brought to an asylum. I mean, I guess what they would call asylums back then, at the late 19th century, what we today would call a psychiatric hospital.
Right.
And this is an extremely cruel segment.
Yeah. It was
when you look at, and I've seen this in many films before. I saw it in From Hell when they lobotomized that woman. I've seen it in oh God, there was another movie where I saw this, and I can't think of what it is now. I had it yesterday, but now I can't think of it. Maybe it'll come to me later. But this horrendous treatment of the mentally ill, or how little people back then understood mental illness, how little people today understand mental illness. And it's funny because I just watched. Have you ever seen that movie, The Boston Strangler, the old one with
Tony Curtis?
Yes. Tony Curtis and Henry Fonda?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you saw it. I saw it for the first time. It was like a couple of days ago, and it's really good. I thought it was a really good movie. It was really good. I know they got a new one out, and it's about the women reporters now, and it's something different, but with Keira Knightley. But at the end, they have this text box at the credits, and they ask people to please consider having a discussion about mental illness so that these types of people can be helped before they become violent.
Right.
And that was in 1968. I was born in 68. And here we are, 2023. We just had that awful school shooting in Nashville. 3 kids, 3 adults. The head of the school, a little 9-year-old girl, ran I'm sure you saw it, trying to pull the fire alarm, to signal for help. Yeah, even today, people are still asking for this conversation about mental illness, and it's just, it's awful. Oh, it's The Wolfman. That was the other one, where they throw Benicio del Toro in the asylum, and you could see what asylum conditions were like, where they performed that hydrotherapy, and we saw some of that here. I mean, yes. It's essentially a torture chamber.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. They're going to try to torture you, and they're going to try to torture and force whatever problem it is you're having mentally out of you by freezing you to death in freezing water, drilling a hole in your
Yeah,
head, shocking
it's
you, just whatever.
yeah, electric. I mean, they perform the hydrotherapy. I mean, and it's funny because they're like tying her in a straitjacket
Hmm.
because her parents have her committed. They're tying her in a straitjacket and putting her in this bathtub that's full of ice.
Right.
So she can't get out. And they actually believed that this was a treatment for mental
Yeah.
illness. I mean, today at least we know that that's like unbelievably cruel,
Right.
and
Well, hell,
awful. It has absolutely nothing to do with treatment of mental illness. I mean, today athletes take ice baths to relieve inflammation.
yeah.
Certainly not for, mental
Well, I mean,
illness or anything like that.
look at even what 40, 45 years ago, and the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It wasn't much more humane then than it was back, back in 1800, back in the day, like what they're showing here and in the Wolfman. It wasn't that much better at that point. So
Yeah, and
it's just come forward the last couple of decades, maybe.
yeah, and even then, it feels like we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah,
I mean, I would love to have, a president actually come out and say from either party, we're going to have an honest national debate or discussion about mental health in this country.
right.
I mean, here we are. They've got her tied to a wall and they're hosing her essentially with a fire hose.
Yeah, yeah. That's just hurting her. I don't see what kind of therapy that is. You're just hurting her with the water pressure,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean, if,
shutting it off and then kicking it back on. That just seems more like a game than it does any kind of therapy.
well, I'm sure you probably had to have a particular type of person who could do this to another person.
Exactly.
So this isn't this isn't some sort of Easter Sunday, kind of, compassion or something like this. You probably had to have some real knuckle draggers, at your disposal who would do these sorts of things. They actually used freaking hole saws. They were boring into her skull with fucking hole saws. I mean, this is just, and this was the same thing that we saw in, and like you said, in Cuckoo's Nest, where they lobotomized Nick. I've never actually watched Cuckoo's Nest because I know how it ends, and it just seems like it would be too sad for me.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good movie.
I'm sure it's a fantastic movie. I'm sure it's a fantastic movie, but my gut just tells me to watch. If I watch it, then I'm just, it's going to be awful to watch. But I mean, this was also something that we saw in The Exorcist, where they initially think that the problem with Reagan is psychiatric, so they put her through all these painful physical tests, and they're drawing blood out of her neck, and these large machines that are scaring the shit out of her. And I remember from The Exorcist that I felt that the demon inside of her was sort of enjoying that she was experiencing this suffering. And of course, the people around her were suffering as well. And I kind of got the impression that it was the same here.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, with The Exorcist, and probably with this too, with her whatever it is she's got going on, the weaker that you make the person, the easier it is to take them over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why the demon enjoyed an Exorcist, because all they were doing was weakening her with drugs, with treatments, with all this different shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And very similar to The Exorcist, after a while, what ends up happening is I guess she ends up going home.
Right.
They've done whatever they can, I don't know if the family, but whatever it is, she's back home again. And then we see Peter again, and he is finally leaving on the trip.
Right.
And very much like The Exorcist, where she sees that astronaut and says, "You're going to die up there."
Yeah.
She tells Peter he's going to die.
Yeah, but it was really sad when she asked for if when she says I wish you would have kissed me, will you kiss me now? And he's in a situation where, I mean, what was he supposed to do? You know what I mean? And then yeah, she tells him, you're gonna die, you're not gonna make it back. And I liked
Yeah,
when her mom asked him, what did she say? And
yeah.
he said he couldn't make it out,
He's
straight
an
out loud.
yeah, he's an extremely kind person.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
he's very gentle. He's very soft hearted. You know, he's just a nice person. You know, and even then, and we should mention that what she's done has alienated her entire family. She's essentially ruined her family.
right.
She's ruined Mina's life. This engagement. Her family has been ostracized from the other family, from the Murrays. Um, it's been an awful situation. So again, this guilt, and they feel that this is what's offset this breakdown. And yeah, it's just been, I mean, years go by from her transgression, I guess you would call it, to this time. After all this suffering, years go by, and then to cap it off, um yeah, do you want to get into that?
Well, yeah, she starts talking to what she considers the serpent, which looks just like Sir Malcolm. Of course,
Yeah,
it's not, but it's almost like he is who she has in mind. When she starts talking to this and listen to this, he is who she has in mind. So you can see, underlining what she thinks of him. It's immediately got his face on it, and then um, they're talking, and she's basically just shitty to it, and he's kind of trying to get closer in there talking to her, and then I couldn't believe when her mom walked in, and because you can hear her screaming and hollering and moaning, and you could tell that it was a sexual thing going on, and then
yeah,
she's having sex basically with no one, and fucking fucking kills her mother, gives her mom a heart attack or something right while she's
yeah,
standing there.
yeah. Well, I mean, she is, and we're going to get into this some more. She is courting, and that's a secondary thread that we haven't really gotten into, that she's being pursued by the devil,
Yeah,
or this master vampire,
she's
that
hearing voices.
yeah, I mean, when we talk to Fenton, he's like, do you know the name Mina? He goes, I know the name Vanessa.
Uh-huh.
My master tells me about Vanessa. I don't know anything about Amina. This, that, and the other. So there's this whole idea that throughout this story, she's being pursued by some sort of, major evil. And
Yeah.
I don't think she was doing nothing. But I think we had a little possession going on here.
Yeah.
And her
Yeah.
mother walks in on a sexual act that she can't see the other participant. And those eyes look at her, and they're just whited over, and her mother just drops dead right there.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, "Dang, she just had a heart attack right on the fucking spot."
Yeah,
And I thought that's what happened, but then the next scene is showing him at the funeral. So I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what happened."
yeah, she's gone. And I mean, it's
Poor woman.
again the thing that is causing her to, causing all this suffering is, greatly enjoying this. And we're almost at the end of the episode. So many years have passed for this, and it's just been nothing but suffering
Yeah,
for Vanessa and for her family. Um, and then I guess she's sort of back on her feet again, and she's walking on those beaches as they once did. And who does she see on the beach again? But Mina. And I remember the first time that this happened, this was the last thing that I expected.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Mina's on there, and she starts telling the story that, well, what did you think of that? What did you think of that exchange?
Well, I was a little surprised, but then when she started telling her she forgave her and everything, I thought it was just the fact that they'd grown up together and that many years have went by now, and that maybe she really did forgive her until until what happened next happened. You know,
I think that, there's a genuineness there
yeah.
where she did forgive her. Because
Plus,
I
she's
think we
young.
were seeing like two Minas there.
Yeah.
And I think on the occasions that we have seen Mina, there has been two Minas.
Hmm.
There's the one Mina who's asking for help, and then there's the other Mina who is
The monster,
struggling.
basically.
Yeah, it's just won over by the other side there, and she tells her, whatever you've done, you've more than paid for.
Oh yeah.
With your own suffering. My life has gone on. I'm married now, and she mentions she's married to a guy named Harker.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. She just, I'm married to a nice man. He's not some, handsome British gentleman, this, that, or whatever, but he's a good man. He's kind. He loves me. Yeah, he loves me. He's a lawyer. And then it starts to get a little dark, where she starts to talk about the master. She understands things, and she understands things that I think she says the master has taught me much, too much, things that people should not have to understand. And then she sort of begs for help.
She's desperate. Yeah, she's desperate. She's come to her for help. Yeah.
Yeah, for help. It gets dark, all of a sudden, and it's a shame. Hold on a second. It changes over into something super dark, where she's asking for help. And then you see the sort of maybe vampire face that she's
right.
That she's really showing, or that maybe she's struggling against, so on and so forth. And that kind of brings us to where we are in the story now. That's pretty much the entirety of the backstory.
That brings us full circle to Sir Malcolm's door to talk to him, and he's a shitty motherfucker, and until she's like, look, don't get all self-righteous on me, motherfucker, because I seen you and my mom. See, that's something nobody else knew. She never told anybody else about that until then.
Yeah, and the funny thing is about Sir Malcolm, he's a hypocrite. Because he knows, what his own fuck-ups are, but he's not going to admit that to her. He's perfectly willing to lay it all on her doorstep. He's kind of a son of a bitch,
Until he found out that somebody else knew about that, especially that she knew about it. And that's kind of what influenced her to do what she did in a way.
Yeah. And then he's sort of forced to own up to his own, his own sins. Sir Malcolm's a hypocrite. I like his character. I love Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
But he's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite.
It's a realistic character. It's a realistic character. He's not the Prince Charming or knight in shining armor.
He is not he is not a white knight. No, he's not. He's kind of a bastard. I remember a long time ago, we did a show on top 5 anti-heroes, your favorite anti-heroes.
Oh, yeah.
And my number one anti-hero was James Bond. Because for me, an anti-hero was somebody who does the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Right.
These sorts of things. And you always pair the anti-hero up against someone worse.
Right. No,
but I was like, he kills and murders people left and right. He's just a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
He seduces women. He lies. He cheats. But we always root for him. I mean, I've got almost the entire Bond collection back behind me here. Hold on, let's see what I've got here.
Oh yeah,
I've got.
My son's watching those. He started at the very first one, and he's going to go through all of them. And he was talking about how badly Bond treats women.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got Timothy Dalton here, and here he is himself. Dalton. Brosnan.
So he said to me, he was like, "Man, he treats women bad."
Oh yeah, they had a show on when Die Another Day came out before it dropped. AMC did a show on the history of Bond women. And it goes all the way back to like Ursula Andress. And if you watch Dr. No, like he's roughing him up, man. He's got these heavies. I think he had like a CIA guy. Maybe it was Felix Leitner back then even. Putting some woman's arm behind her back, trying to get her to talk. And, he's slapping him and throwing him down on the bed, and this, that, and the other. And it was the evolution of that all the way to like Die Another Day, where you got to Halle Berry, where she's pretty much an equal. And then you got to the Daniel Craig era where, we get to see Eva Green. And I thought Eva Green was I thought Vesper Lynd was a great Bond girl. And everybody else through the Daniel Craig thing. But yeah, he's kind of maybe they are all of them in their own way, kind of anti-heroes.
Right.
They're trying to find this girl. They're trying to help Miss Ives. But there are all kinds of, Dr. Frankenstein's a son of a bitch. Sir Malcolm. I love Sim Betty, but, he just twisted that cat's fucking neck like that, and just kind of threw it and then walked away. So, yeah, they're all rough customers.
Well, I mean, sometimes maybe it takes those kind of people to truly see what the right thing to do is. Or to truly see when the right thing to do comes along, to truly see that it is the right thing, in a way. What I mean?
that and sometimes you just need rough people to do a job.
To take care of a rough situation, yeah.
Yeah, rough. You send rough people in to do a rough job. Militaries around the world, our military, we do it. What's that? Is it the Orwell quote? People lie safe in their beds because rough men are out there doing jobs, to keep them safe so they can sleep easy tonight. This kind of thing.
I like Snake Plissken as an anti-hero.
Snake Plissken's great. Snake Plissken is great. I can't remember. I can't remember who my top 5 were. I remember one of them was, I think, Colonel Kurtz. Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Marlon Brando, Walter E. Kurtz, James Bond. I can't remember who the other 3 though were, but that was a good show. But yeah, I mean, this is a dirty, dirty business that these people are doing in this show, and so they're rough themselves. They're beating Fenton with that. Sir Malcolm was like flogging him, with that riding crop, and yeah, I mean, it's rough shit.
This also makes sense why he was so willing and didn't have any reservations about using her as bait. It makes a lot more sense now too, because they're together and she lives there and they formed a team, an alliance together to try to help Mina. But at the same time, there's still that underlying bitterness.
Yeah, you can see there's still some.
He destroyed his family,
Yeah, a lot of resentments there. It's cost. Yeah, it's cost him his daughter. Now in a very awful way, it's cost him his daughter. It's cost Vanessa her mother. It's cost her, years of suffering. But the question is, did she do this independent of herself, or,
right?
Was she influenced by this dark, sort of spirit that's following her around? My inclination says it's a bit of both.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say I would say there's a good 50-50 there.
Well, we've only got 3 episodes left in the season. Are you still enjoying it?
Oh yeah. Me and the whole family is so.
Okay. So we'll be back on schedule. There's no WrestleMania this Sunday. There's no Monday Night Raw, so we'll be back on Sunday. In the meanwhile, why don't you plug out the rest of your week?
Oh shit. Well, this little lighter week. Tonight at 10. I'm doing for the horror of it. Episode 3 tonight. We're doing Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh,
myself and my co-host Karen from Motion Chicks Films.
Okay.
And there'll be a few little surprises on that. Let me see. Friday I'm going to be joining JT's Horror Discussions and Sean Blue Digital to do the remake of Maniac.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, I seen the show that you did on it.
Oh yeah, that didn't. Yeah, I don't know if I made anybody happy, but it was the truth. That's what I thought. So.
But yeah. I see. I was coming the whole time. I was like, he's not gonna like that.
No,
I
no,
I knew you wouldn't.
I watched it, but you know.
I'll probably squeeze something else in between here somewhere because that's a lot of days in between. And then Sunday be back here with you, and then Monday back to my Italian horror Fulci marathon.
Okay. All right. All right. So if you're checking it out, get to the Goraphobes channel. I'm going to put the link in the description to his channel. He's got a lot of good content, and he's a big horror fan. He believes in the shit that he's saying. So check out his content. He puts a lot of work in. Go give him a sub. Give his videos a like. Put a comment in there. 1-word comment is fine. Helps the algorithm. So give him some support. For me, we will be back on Thursday. I'll be here with Eric covering. We're going to close out actually Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass because things come to such a head at the end of episode 5. I didn't have the heart to make Eric wait 2 weeks. So we're going to do 6 and 7 in the same episode and just close it out. It's such a fantastic series. And if you get an opportunity, you got to watch it, man. You'll love it. It's great stuff. Cool. Great stuff. All right. Well, I guess that's it for us. Is there anything that we forgot to mention that you'd like to add?
No, I think we covered it pretty well, man. That was a pretty straightforward, simple episode. Like I was saying at the beginning, that one, you know what I mean? It just went straight through a quick childhood. The feelings build up, the tension and the kind of the jealousy / hatred for Mina. Mina got the guy that she probably would have wanted. The guy that she was with didn't want her. He wanted to go to Africa. She did that. The family disowned her family. She ended up getting lobotomized, halfway possessed. She's back there, and she ran to Mina again. Didn't realize Mina had turned into a ghoul, and now she formed a team with Sarmat.
Yeah. It's a rough show. A lot of rough. It's not a happy show. It's not a happy show. It's not a horror comedy. It's gruesome shit, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So, I like these types of shows. So, all right. My thanks to the Goraphobe. And, man, thank you once again. We'll see you all in the next video. Have a good night, everybody, and take care. Peace.
Take it easy, man.